In this video, I want to walk you through a meta ad campaign that I ran promoting an instrumental piano music playlist on Spotify. And the interesting thing about instrumental music, or any type of bingeable music, which is typically instrumental, like piano, lo-fi, or whatever, is you promote it very differently from regular vocal-driven music. You typically promote it with playlists. First, I want to talk about the budget, because a lot of people ask me, like, how much did you spend? In this case, this had a relatively large budget, but not really, right? It's spending $4 a day now, and it's been running for a long time. When I say a long time, I mean since July 2023, so it's been running for almost 2 years. So this wasn't like a case of running a ton of money in a short period of time. This was the case of running a smaller trickle over a long period of time. And if we look at the amount of money spent over time, you can see it never really spent more than $10 a day, right? For most of its history, it was at $3 a day. Which is, there's both good and bad aspects to that. So starting off, we spent $2,200 here. I checked the royalty statements. We've actually made back $1,900 on the artist that's featured in this playlist. And that's not including, right, the delay of royalties. So this artist gets about $200 a month in royalties, and there's 3-month delay. So I believe it's actually profitable once you factor that in. Remember, because we've made back $1,950 or something like that. It's making about $200 a month. There's typically a 2 to 3 month delay on royalty collection, so that would take this into the positive end of the spectrum. So this is the profile level for this artist, and keep in mind on Spotify, you can only look at 12 months in the past. This campaign is 2 years long, so we can't see in one view all of the streams. We can go on Spotify for artists, and we can just nudge this back a year. So there's about 300, let's call it 300 to make the math easy, even though it's a little less than that. Call this 600. So it's about, let's just call it 850,000 streams. And if I go to locations, you can see it's at least in the last 28 days, it's the biggest countries, the US, followed by Canada, Mexico, Australia, Brazil. So most of the streams are from higher paying countries, which the reason why that matters, like, that's essentially why this campaign is like just ever so slightly profitable. But this artist has only been promoted through this playlist. So we got the whole catalog of music, we put it on this playlist, and we ran ads to it over 2 years. Probably not the best way to promote an artist, but it was the easiest way to promote an artist like this. So if we look at the source of streams, this is going to tell the story pretty clearly. We're going to look at active, which would be people seeking out the music. Out of 593,000 streams, there's only 50,000 there. If we look up algorithmic, there's only 10,000. If you look at other listeners' playlists, there's 200,000, which makes sense because this music is it is only promoted through this playlist. So we've got all the music from this artist through it in this playlist and drove ads to this playlist. So it makes sense why this is high. But then radio, boom, right? It's towering above, especially in the last couple months, it's towering above everything else. And radio is an algorithmic playlist. Spotify just keeps track of it separately from the other algorithmic playlists. We only really drove these 200,000 streams to the playlist. And then we essentially tripled our stream count through everything else that happened as a result of the ads that we ran to that playlist. The people we drove there are generating 46 streams per listener. And that's because these are short piano songs. I think they're like 2.5 minutes each. And I mean, there's some that are longer, 3.5, 4, but most of them are between 2 and 3 minutes a piece. And it's just instrumental piano, which people tend to binge and listen to for hours on end while they're working, studying, sleeping, whatever. And then that, also some people will like it enough to go to the artist profile and stream it themselves. So those people are generating 20 streams per listener. But then that causes that surge of radio and algorithmic, specifically radio, and that has a low stream per listener because that is just passive recommendations to cold audiences, and it's not like it's all the artist's music. It's you, and then it's another artist, and another artist, and another artist, and you might show up a couple times in a listening session. Overall, you can see apparently we're showing up about 4 times per listening session in radio, and that's why there's actually a high stream per listener for radio. So this is like the power of instrumental music, and this is why for bingeable instrumental music, I will recommend people send to a playlist. If you're doing vocal-driven music, pop, country, rock, hip-hop, whatever, you don't want to promote your music typically by driving people to a playlist. Driving people to a playlist gets you a much higher stream per listener, But with vocal-driven music, you're trying to get concentrated results in that one song. You want to get saves in that one song, stream per listener on that one song. So if you do the playlist, you won't get one song popping off. You'll end up with a bunch of songs in a little bit. With bingeable music, though, it's a completely different story. The pretty much the only viable path is spending most of your money in these playlist type things. You could also do albums too if you're releasing albums and stuff. So now let's jump over to Facebook ads so I can show you kind of how this campaign was set up and what some of the ads look like. If you don't know, I have a course called Spotify Growth Machine that I'll put a little icon here, but it's linked down below, and I just added a brand new playlist module that goes over not only, well, one, the whole course already covered how to run campaigns like this because the difference to a playlist campaign is actually pretty small. But there's a whole module now that goes over specifically how to tweak these campaigns for playlists, how to think about what kinds of playlists to make, what ad creatives to make, and how to track the results in some spreadsheets that I have. So anyways, let's walk through this campaign. We're running our typical engagement conversion campaign. If I go into one of the ad sets, we're doing website conversions for our pixel, Feature FM all, because we're using a Feature FM landing page. And that's kind of the nerdy details. If you've seen my videos, you see me cover this probably a couple hundred times. So I'm not going to go through every little button. But this video goes through every little button. This video here. And at the end of this video, I'm going to link to two videos. One is going to be that same video. Another one's going to be how to set up the pixel. So if you're wondering, like, I just want to see how on YouTube videos, how do I set this stuff up? I don't want to buy a course ad, or don't worry, at the end I'll link you to that stuff too. But I want to be brief here for all of you who are tired of hearing me go through campaign setups over and over and over again. If I walk back through here, you can see we have 4 ad sets. So we have mostly tier 1, HP in this case, countries. And then we have 1 tier 2 audience, or tier 1 and tier 2 audience. And inside of these, we have 8 total ads I think we technically had made. I think I might have only used 4. But we made visual 1 and visual 2, and we made 4 parts of the song for each. And I think I ended up only using half of those. I tried 2 from visual 1 and 2 from visual 2. Because it's piano music, not much really changes throughout the song, honestly. And I think each visual had different audio, or different song was used for each one. We're targeting our tier 1, tier 2 audiences, which, by the way, that country list is inside that course, although you can manually grab it if you wish here. Nothing you haven't seen before. 18 to 55, Spotify, people who also like piano and classical music, who also like yoga, who also like ambient, drone, chill-out music. I don't always get this specific. Sometimes I'm going much more broad. Sometimes I'm going somewhere in the middle. But even with this level of specificity, we still have 5 million people who fit the bill, right? Who live in these countries, who fit this age group, who fit all these targeting options. And that's a plenty big audience to run, right? 5 million people is plenty. In terms of placements, we're only running this on Instagram, specifically these 4. Sometimes I run ads on Facebook as well. It kind of depends on the project, the artist, the music, the demographics, etc., and also the ad account. I recommend, if you're new to this, that you start with just these 4 Instagram placements because it's the most reliable option. Now, for the ad creatives, the visuals are a very important part of any campaign. Sometimes, in this case, it's not too much of a difference, 30 cents to 25 cents conversion. But even if you're spending $2,000, right, that's a pretty big difference. That's like a 20% difference in cost. And if you're spending $2,000, right, that's a big difference. You saved a lot of money. But sometimes the difference in cost per conversion, which again is if you're not familiar with all the lingo, this is basically the cost per person that we get to click on the ad, land on our landing page, and then click this button to go stream it. It's kind of like a cost per listener in a way, but it's cost per person clicking over to go to our destination. You can have ones where like one ad is 60 cents, another ad's 20 cents, another ad's $1, another ad's 15 cents. So it's very much worth testing multiple creatives. I'll show you what this one looks like for a playlist. It's nothing fancy. It's just some stock footage from like Storyblocks or Art Grid or whatever, or Pexels, which is a free stock footage site, and then some fancy text and animations and some cover artwork. Not even good generated cover artwork, right? The keys aren't even correct on that keyboard. This one they are, but are they? I actually don't think they're correct here. They're just harder to tell. But, AI generated artwork, which, I know some people don't like AI generated artwork, but for playlists, it's very quick to generate it. And now the accuracy is better. When I made this playlist, Midjourney wasn't that good at generating keyboards at the time. So people are seeing this ad, and there's different variations, right? This visual 2 is more focused on like meditation instead of yoga. And there's just different stock footage here. And the text on the ad is quite simple. Just the best peaceful piano music of 2023. And we haven't updated this. And the reason why I haven't updated this is because these ads over time can start getting some social proof on them, like comments and likes and whatever. And if you update the ad later with the date, you lose all that social engagement and social proof. So yeah, it's not always worth editing it. So I just leave the wrong date there, and it seems to not matter. As you saw, if I go back to the graph of results over time, and we look at cost per conversion, it's gotten more expensive. Like it was much worse at the beginning, and then it kind of figured itself out, and it's crept up a little bit in the last couple months, but not that much. Like it's still a great campaign, and it didn't change at all in 2024. So the text doesn't make a big difference overall. It's more has to do with the ads and the music and the videos and the targeting. So there are ways to actually improve this further. One, I could have done more ad testing. I could have done more audience testing. Of course, you can always do that. But I could have actually made this playlist on Apple Music, on YouTube Music, on Deezer, I could have made it on every single other DSP. And there's platforms that kind of help you sync playlists across DSPs. I haven't done that. I could do that across a couple, and I might going forward, because then I'm just capturing more people that I might otherwise not capture because maybe they don't use Spotify. They only use Apple. And Apple pays roughly double per stream. So by missing out on those people, I could be missing out on a larger potential income stream. And from what I've heard from a lot of labels that do this at scale, those other DSPs end up representing about 20% of their income. So imagine there's this getting 20% better over time by including some of that front work of making the playlists across other platforms. So there can be a lot to this, but making a playlist, a good playlist, and making some good ads and driving traffic to it, that's essentially just what I showed here. And then you just need to test different playlists, test different ads, test different audiences. And if you want to see how you can do this, all of this from start to finish, check out this video right here where I walk you through how to run campaigns just like this. The only difference between that video and the stuff in here is that this is for a playlist and that's for a song, but the setup is exactly the same. And this video down here will help you set up all the Facebook pixel stuff. So if you have like, how do I track these landing pages and how do I get the data to track conversions in my campaign, this bottom video will help you out with that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.